Hi, Emma here. Now, today is the second part in the series of how to help people with anxiety or depression disorders. If you watched the first one, you will know that one is you can't help somebody who isn't ready to be helped. And two, when you do help them, you need to help them in their way or a specific way, not necessarily in your way, because they're different from you. But today, I want to talk to you about how to help people who have anxiety. The first thing to remember is don't buy in to their anxiety. It is quite exhausting on the other person. It's exhausting on the person who has anxiety, but it's exhausting for people around them as well when they have anxiety, because the anxiety prevents them from doing things. And I think the first message I want to get across is don't buy into their anxiety. Don't help them with their anxiety. And what I mean by that is don't help them to be anxious. Now, people with anxiety and depression often want to talk about what is going on. They want to talk about, and although it may seem as if it's being kind, listening to them talking about how bad it is, what's actually happening for the person with anxiety is that they are going over and over the videos in their mind about their anxiety, which is recalling them, which is bringing back all the feelings, and bringing back all the feelings, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the taste, everything else that's going on for them whilst they're having their anxious episodes, is reinforcing it. And it's convincing, or it's reinforcing in their mind that they have some sort of emergency crisis or danger going on, which is bringing about this fight or flight response, which is causing them to negatively imagine the future and to use their imagination into predicting what might or might not happen. And people with anxiety overanalyze everything, and they look at the worst possible scenario and everything that could go wrong. Now, I'm not saying necessarily like cut them off or don't let them talk. But what I'm saying is try not to encourage them into keep going over all these things, because they'll go over all these things time and time again. What you can do to help is encourage them to question this negative thinking in a positive way. So, for example, if they are saying, well, what if this happens? Or what if this goes wrong? Or what if they have an accident? Or what if they don't make it? Or what if you can't do it? Because they do a lot of what ifing. And people with anxiety we call worrying and what ifing. If they're doing the what ifing, challenge their thinking in something, for example, well, what if it doesn't? What if what you're worrying about doesn't happen? What if, there is good that comes out of this? What if they're, for example, if they're saying, what if they have an accident? Challenge it by going, well, what if they don't? And you can also challenge their thinking in the, for example, of, well, why would you think that? Challenge them into recognizing for themselves that it's their imagination speaking, not rational thinking. Now, I don't mean to go and tell them they're wrong, because that doesn't do any good. They will carry on in their mind, carrying on thinking in the same way. They will just think, well, you don't understand. You don't understand anxiety, which, they might be right. So just by saying, well, they're wrong, or that's ridiculous, or whatever, that it's not going to be helpful. They don't need to keep hearing they're wrong all the time. They're doing the negative thinking for themselves. They don't need to hear it from other people. What they need to do is to encourage to rationalise their thinking into understanding it's their imagination that's come up with that, nothing to do with reality. So what we can do is number one, going, well, what if good comes out of it? And phrase it in whatever way that good is. Well, what if they have a great time? If they're thinking, well, what if I hate it? Go, well, what if you don't and you have an amazing time? And also encourage them to step back and be aware that their thinking is their imagination, without telling them exactly that. It can be a tricky one, but by saying, well, why would you think that? What? And if they keep going down the sort of the justifying route, bring them back to, well, what if it didn't happen? It didn't happen like that. What would be a good outcome? And isn't that just as possible as the one you're thinking of? So, beginning to help people with anxiety. It's a tricky one because they will be totally convinced that these disasters and impending doom is going to happen. But helping them to rationalise their thinking, to find out what is actually logical and rational, will help. And encouraging them to think on the flip side of their what if. So I hope that's been helpful to you if you are having to deal with somebody with anxiety. Remember, the point that they are ready to get help is the point you can really jump in and go, well, I've seen this about it. Have you seen that this helps? Have you seen that hypnotherapy helps? Have you seen that mindfulness is helpful? I was reading that mindfulness was helpful. I can send you a link if you like. Things like that when they're ready to get help. So next time I'm going to talk about helping somebody with depression. Until then, of course, always feel free to email me if there's anything specific you would like